Hello and welcome to episode number 23 of the Hafey Digital Podcast, a show for creators, makers, and doers, where my goal is to help you make to the max. My name is Ryan Hafey with Hafey Digital, and in this episode, I broke my motherboard, and we're going to talk about it. Let's get into it when I can get the mouse over to the button. Here we go. Okay, I think I timed that right. Welcome to the show. Yes, as you can see, things may look a little bit different color-wise. Even and I've got a laptop here, and it's all because, as I explained in the intro, and as the title alludes to, I broke my motherboard, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. But that is the reason why I'm doing all of this from a laptop here. So there may be some flubs in this episode. Who knows? We'll have to see. But while you're here, hey, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and follow me on social media on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Hafey. Let's have a conversation because those are fun. Excuse me. Today, by the way, drinking Black Cherry Canada Dry. Unfortunately, I was going to feature my most recent favorite carbonated beverage, which not necessarily favorite, but I think it's made by Coca-Cola, brand called Aha. I think they had an apple ginger sparkling water that was quite tasty, but I ran out of those just recently, so we're back to Black Cherry. So anyway, we're gonna get into the motherboard story, but I have some things to discuss ahead of time. So there's no main topic for today. In previous episodes, and for a long time, it was okay. What kind of topic can I discuss in this episode? What kind of topic can I was starting to run out of things to discuss, to be honest. And then I realized that in the beginning, when I first started this podcast, one of the things that I wanted to be sure to do was kind of track progress and growth throughout the different projects that I'm doing, different things that I'm working on. If there's new things that I want to try to take on or learn, tracking the progress through those. So, I could sit here and spread knowledge and talk about stuff and just what I know about camera gear and lenses and photography and video and all that, and that's great. And I'm sure that's beneficial to some people. But I think there's room in all of the episodes for information like that. But I think what's more interesting to me, and what potentially could be more interesting to anybody that may be listening, is sort of seeing the progress through different projects that I'm working on, just kind of taking people along for the ride. So today, yes, while we have story time later about the motherboard, there are some projects that I am currently working on, or that I will be working on shortly, or want to work on, and I want to kind of start those conversations here and get those going. Before we do that, I wanted to show off this thing that I just got in the mail a little bit ago. A couple days ago, I was watching one of Brandon Lee's latest video. Brandon Lee, if you're not familiar, he is a travel filmmaker, super talented guy, super creative guy, and he put out a video. Oh, by the way, I've done a video on one of the effects that's featured in one of Brandon Lee's videos. It's from his video Soul Wave. You should go check that out. It's pretty cool. Anyway, he had a recent video where he was talking about kind of his favorite cheap camera gear, and one of the things that was in there was something that if you're a Sony mirrorless user, you can definitely appreciate, because Sony mirrorless, let's see, not enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. Oh, great. Fantastic. So I'm already having issues streaming from my laptop. Let's see if we can go into the settings real quick. 6,000 kilobits per second. That's what I got. We're just going to have to work with it. We're going to have to see what happens here. But anyway. So anyway, to cut right to the chase, the contraption that I'm referring to, it might be easier actually to do it from this angle, is, zoom out. There we go. Is this thing on top of the camera here, which is basically, turn the camera on. It's a little thing that has a mirror. And if you flip up the flippy screen on the back there, it's going to reflect off of the mirror and allow you to see. I don't know how clear I'm going to get this, but will allow you to see what's going on in your flippy screen. And as you can see, I mean, it's a little out of focus, but you can see all of your settings. You can see audio, you can see your aperture, ISO, all that kind of stuff. Whatever you have on there, it actually comes through pretty clearly. And the great thing about this is, first of all, it was pretty cheap. I want to say it was 20 bucks or less. It doesn't feel, I mean, it's made out of what feels to be relatively cheap plastic, but goes on the or the hot shoe mount of your camera, but then it has 3 cold shoe mounts that you can utilize on the side of it. So if you have a microphone like I do here, you can still mount your microphone. It doesn't take up, you still have a place where you can put your microphone. So if you're a vlogger, or if you just are looking for something in the occasion where you have your camera and you need to be able to see what's going on in the viewfinder without having to turn it around or having someone there to help you, this thing is super handy. And I've got a link in the description below if you want to check it out. But again, Sony user, I find this incredibly useful. So that's cool. Wanted to throw that out there. Speaking of vlogging, I've been seriously considering vlogging again. And really, I don't know, I didn't quite enjoy vlogging a whole lot when I was doing it. I did one of those month-long challenges. I think I did the Vlogust one. Everyone, there's Vlogtober and December, whatever they call the one in December, I forget. But I didn't really enjoy it just because I never felt like I had much of a story to tell. But I want to try to get into the habit of filming a little bit each day, just something, just a few little bits and pieces here and there, mostly focused on what I'm doing, because obviously my channel is my main channel, which is, if you just search my name, Ryan Hafey, you'll find it probably in the description below as well. But it's focused mostly on cameras, camera gear, video editing. Lately I've been doing a series on setting up a podcast like this, so stuff related to cameras and live streaming and photography and all that kind of stuff. So, if I'm going to be vlogging, it's not something that I'm going to be doing super consistently for the most part. But, at least I want to be able to talk a little bit more about the things that I'm working on. I think I want it to kind of complement what I'm doing here on the podcast. The podcast is going to be more long form. This is where I'm going to, get on camera and talk about what I'm doing more in depth, versus the vlog, which will just kind of be more of a, a little taste of the different things that I'm working on and kind of documenting that process as well. So we'll see. I've started filming some clips here and there. It's probably going to be a rough transition for me because I haven't edited a vlog in a while. And that's, again, part of the reason why I want to do it is because I need to get back into the habit of editing. I feel like I'm kind of losing my touch. So we'll see. And that's interesting that I'm using, or that I'm getting this error. It says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. I'm using a high CPU, or high percentage of CPU, 22.3% on my Mac here, but I don't have any drop frames. So whatever. It is what it is. We're going to power through it. And if there's some buffering, and we're just going to deal with it. So yeah, I posed a poll. Actually, I'm going to look at it because I don't think I've checked the update, but I put up a poll on Instagram asking, oh no, it's gone. And I forgot how to go see the results of that stuff. So I'm going to pass it. But I think last time I looked, it was like 60-40 or like 1/3. The question I posed was, does anybody even watch vlogs anymore? And I think 2/3 said yes, 1/3 said no, something along those lines. But yeah, let me know. Do you watch vlogs anymore? Do you find them interesting? Does it really depend on the creator and on the vlogger and who's doing it? But I think I might get it back into that. We'll see. Okay. What else? What's next? Um, Another thing, speaking of just projects that I've been wanting to work on, uh, is I've found for a while now some of my favorite creators on YouTube. They have their own music or they create their own music for their channel, and typically it's kind of the same music that you'll hear on a recurring basis. I know like Camera Conspiracies. Like, I don't go and watch his content for the most up to date information or the most accurate information. Obviously, he makes fun of the camera makers a lot, and he says a lot of stuff that isn't true, and he makes it known that he's joking or whatever. But um, you can, if you've watched enough of his videos, you'll hear the same music recurring over and over, which um, I think is actually it's his signature. Like you recognize those things instantly as being part of his brand. Just in the same way, kind of, Gary Vaynerchuk. If you watch any of his videos on his social media, it starts off with that little. Totally butchered that, but he has this little Gary V sound effect that pops up, and that's kind of his audio signature. Well, I sort of feel the same way about using music in videos. And yeah, I could go to, Artlist, or, I have a subscription to Artlist. I could find some music. I mean, my intro, for example, that I didn't make that, but that's just kind of been part of the podcast since the start. And um, I like it, but like, I don't know. I really like the thought of being able to make my own stuff. The problem is, I don't really know where to start. Um, when when I was back in college, and I've mentioned this before, by the way, my dad growing up, I have a little bit of a background with audio in that my dad used to, and still does, I believe to this day, produce radio commercials back to when it was, reel to reel tapes. Obviously, he's digital now, but so I kind of picked up some things from him over the years, and even in college, or even in high school, I would do some stuff. I was in a band in high school, and I would make some funny raps and things like that with my friends. And then in college, I had a buddy who he and I made some funny raps, and I produced the beats for them. I thought, I mean, for a couple of random dudes in a midwestern college just having fun, I thought they turned out pretty cool, uh, even to this day. And I produced I produced the beats in, I believe, FL Studio, aka Fruity Loops, which I checked the other day, and apparently it's still around, but I haven't used it for a long time. But what I'm looking for, I've toyed with the idea of picking up like a MIDI keyboard of some kind. I just don't know how to use them. I don't know really how to program them. So it's one of those things where I kind of want to get one and play around with it, but then is it something that is going to work for what I want to do, or would I be better off, let's say, just downloading um, FL Studio again and um, producing within that and just using the sounds available there, or recording my own sounds and incorporating them in? How did these MIDI keyboards and like something like Fruity Loop Studio talk to each other? How do they work together? So that's kind of a new project that's that's going on the list. So you know what? Hold on. Okay, okay, okay. So I meant to do this before, but I used this little cheap whiteboard or dry erase board very early on in the podcast episodes, but I'm going to use it again. And what I'm going to do is just list all of my product. And I might do this for like 2 episodes and then forget about it again, but whatever. So I'm just going to call it music production. That's one of the things I'm going to work on. So I think what I'm going to start with is probably playing around with something like FL Studio, seeing what my limitations are there, and then if it's something where I need to get a MIDI keyboard of some kind, then we'll look into that. I mean, there's one that's kind of popular that I've seen on Amazon, a couple people using it as well. It's like $119. I don't need anything special. I'm not looking to produce like crazy cinematic, or like, um, EDM bangers or anything like that. I'm just looking to be able to. I want to. What it's honestly these days, like anyone who edits video knows that one of the hardest things to do is find the right video or the right music to fit your video. However, I can't even there's been so many times when I've been editing a video and I'll be able to like hear what the music should sound like in my head, but I can't find anything to replicate that. So if I could be able to produce a simple beat, and make some music, just drum beat, simple bass beat. I mean, I've got a somewhat of a background in music, studied a little bit of music business in college, played drums and guitar and bass growing up. Fun fact, I took bass guitar lessons with the bassist from Mudvayne back in the day, which is interesting, I guess. His name is also Ryan. But I just want to have the kind of the freedom to do that, and maybe even just have a bank of audio that I can use for my content. I think that would be kind of interesting and unique to me, and hopefully I can get to a point where I can do it quickly. Because I don't want to turn into a music producer. I don't even really want to bring attention to it in any of the stuff that I do. I just want to be able to make it and then say, hey, here it is. But I'll document that process here as we go. So we'll see how that goes. What else? What other projects working on? So I've talked about the Pintastic recipes episode that we filmed for like the first time in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years maybe. Just as a quick recap, my wife and I started a YouTube channel back in 2013. Concept being we would find recipes that we like or that look good on Pinterest. We would recreate them and taste test them to see if we like them or not. We refilmed our first episode in a number of years. The maybe I don't know, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I'm starting to edit that together. I actually just finished the little animated intro. I made a kind of little animated intro thing that's kind of cool. So that's exciting, and so we're working on putting that together. But that's basically starting from scratch because the old music that we had is just so outdated. I was looking back on some of the old episodes we did, and it's so funny to see like how crappy or like just how much things have progressed over time. Um, we didn't use any external lighting in the beginning. I was using a Canon T3i, which I had to manual focus. So it'll be the quality difference will be definitely noticeable, but hopefully can have that done and out the door within the next, I mean, the way things are going, within the next couple weeks or so. So that's another project that's ongoing. But I think it's time now to get to the main topic of this episode after a sip of Black Cherry Canada Dry Sparkling Seltzer Water. And that is this right here. This is my old motherboard from my PC. Now, a little bit of context with this motherboard and recent upgrades that I've done to my PC. So, when I first built my PC, I had a Ryzen 1700X CPU. I don't know if it's Ryzen 7 or what it was, but it was a decent CPU. But I eventually wanted something that could, you know, push a little more juice through and handle a little bit more. I was working with Premiere and working with a lot of 4K files, and it wasn't working out as well as I would have liked. So I decided to upgrade to the Ryzen 7 3700X CPU, which I put on this motherboard, which, by the way, I do find it kind of coincidental that I'm referring. I'm talking about killing my motherboard on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, by the way, to all the fantastic mothers out there. I only waited 23 minutes into the episode to mention that. But anyway, so this board is apparently apparently compatible with the Ryzen 7 3700X. But what happened when we installed it, and by we I mean my brother-in-law, who knows more about the technicals behind um, PC builds and all that kind of stuff. He helped me out. But we installed the CPU. He flashed the BIOS. We booted it up, and then it would just hang on startup. And I think actually in the early days of this podcast, we were still dealing with it at that time. But it would hang for sometimes up to like 30 minutes. And you would just let it hang, and then eventually you'd come back in the room and you'd see, oh, hey, it started up. Great. One day I did something to where it just started fixing itself. I don't know exactly what it is. I had a hunch that it was updating drivers for the SSD that I had, because once I did that, it started working again properly, and then it never went back to the long startup times. It would start up perfectly every time. But what? So at a certain point, actually not long ago, well, I guess it would be within the last week, I went to go update the BIOS. So I did that. I did it correctly. Updated to the most recent version, and it started doing the same thing that it did before, where it would hang on startup. So I'm like, oh great, now I got to troubleshoot this again. And by the way, the first time we troubleshooted it, it had to be like a week that I dealt with it. And once the computer started up, it was fine. Everything worked perfectly when as long as it started up, it was fine. But I was super frustrated. Like, oh God, I don't want to have to deal with this again. I updated the BIOS. I reverted back to the version that I upgraded from to see if that would fix it. That didn't fix it, so something had obviously been triggered. And I mean, this isn't the most top of the line, most compatible board. So I'm sure there were some issues with the board and the CPU combination, whatever. But I was like, okay, I got to figure something out. So one of the things that I had seen that was like, okay, try this. Sometimes this will work for people, is resetting CMOS, which requires you to remove this little battery here. So you shut down the computer, you unplug the power cable, and then you go in there, you remove this battery for a little bit and kind of, I guess, just release all the electrical charges or something like that within the board. Put it back in, and then for some people that fixes it. Well, what I did was, see, the problem is this is where my graphics card went, here, which means that I would have had to remove my graphics card in order to get to this little battery. The problem with that is, well, wasn't really a problem with it. It was just user error. But I went and tried to remove it, and there's these little expansion slots, and you've got these little latches here, right? And that's what kind of holds the graphics card or whatever is there in place. Well, I thought that I had released the graphics card enough. I thought I had unlatched it here. I'm hitting the microphone here. I'm gonna go here to this angle. Let's bring this down a little bit. Oh, it's already there. So this little latch here, I thought I had released it so that I could pull the graphics card out safely, but I didn't. So when I started to pull the graphics card out, this black piece started coming up with it, only it was here. And it's not like I yanked it and the whole thing came off all at once, but I pulled on it hard enough to where it lifted up a little bit. And if you can see, let's see if I can make this any more clear. Kind of. You can see all these little pins here. All those little pins go into all the individual slots on this little piece here. And if you get, oops, Siri thought I was talking to her again. No, Siri, not today. And if you remove this, it's essentially impossible to get it back in. So at a certain point, this was like halfway pulled off. And I was like, well, I just got to yank it off at this point. There's no turning back. There's no way to salvage it. And that basically rendered this motherboard useless, or at least this expansion slot useless. But lemons and lemonade, the downside of this is I don't have my PC to work with. But when you really think about it, there's a lot more upside than there is downside in that, I have a Mac laptop that I can use for this type of stuff. I don't like the experience quite as much, and for whatever reason, it's having a much harder time processing the stream than my PC was. For example, my PC would use, and this is on my PC, I would be recording and streaming on on here. I'm just streaming, and I'm using 22.6% of my CPU. On the PC, I would use on average about 2%. So my PC was definitely handling the load a lot better, and you might even be able to hear the the Mac fan in the background because it's running pretty hot. But the bright side being, I do have another setup that I can use in the meantime to just do general work and to stream the podcast if I need to. The other upside is now I get to upgrade. So I've already bought a new motherboard, upgraded to an X570 motherboard, which is supposed to come in on Friday. Fun fact, apparently everyone's using their stimulus checks on building new PCs because motherboards are sold out everywhere. There was one motherboard that I purchased, and then I think it was on Amazon or somewhere, and then got an email shortly after saying that it was sold out. And my order had to be canceled. So I had to pay a little bit more than I wanted to for a similar, but a little bit better X570 motherboard. But that comes in next Friday. Also, I figured while I'm at it, might as well bump up my my RAM. So the board that I got can support up to 128 gigs of RAM. I'm getting 64 gigs in my PC before I had 32. So it's going to be a faster system. It's going to work better. The motherboard that I'm getting is fully compatible with the Ryzen CPU that I have. So all the components should work just fine. Knock on wood, because if you've ever built a PC before, and I've really only built one and modified one a couple of times, but it can be challenging. It's not the easiest thing to do if you've never done it before. But that's it. So yeah, we're gonna get hopefully a new improved CPU or a new and improved motherboard, which will result in a new and improved CPU. So that I'm kind of excited about, but unfortunately, just with all the shipping stuff and everything that's going on, the motherboard won't come in till Friday. I think the RAM comes in on Wednesday. So fingers crossed, I should be up and running with the PC next week. So we won't have to deal with this Mac nonsense. The other interesting thing that I noticed is, I guess it might be monitor. It's probably mostly monitor related, but because obviously my Mac monitor is not color calibrated. Oops, getting a phone call. Sorry, can't talk right now. Oh, there go the dogs. Oh, everything's going crazy. But I noticed that on OBS with my filters applied. Let's see if I can, let's do this. Hold on. We're going to change the display so you can see. Good. Okay. We turn this on. Oh, wait, that's not going to work, is it? No, that's not going to work. That's right, because I'm dumb. Okay. Disregard what I was just going to say. But anyway, long story short, in OBS, I noticed that my picture is much more contrasty, and really just the contrast is kicked up really high. But on YouTube, it seems to be okay. And hopefully my audio and everything like that is okay as well. So that's the story. And there's a silver lining in anything. I think that's the moral of the story. If you're a little pissed off at something right now, maybe something that's not so great happened in your life, look for the silver lining, because you'll find it somewhere. I know there's like some psychology term around it too. I forget what it is, but just don't take time to dwell in the negative stuff. Figure out how to turn it into something positive, and just be happy, because life's too short, and that's it. That life's too short, so just enjoy it, Anyway, one more time, let's start that little subscribe animation. Go ahead and click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe to the podcast in audio form as well, because while this is often a visual podcast, I'm sure you can get some benefit out of it driving in your car to, well, I assume a lot of you probably aren't driving your cars to work right now because you're probably working from home or not doing a whole lot of driving at the moment. But hey, when you're working out, you can listen to my sexy voice. Richard Miguel, audio quality sound good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how this new setup because I was glad that I was able to set it up and get it up and going in time. And I'm lucky that I had all the connectors and everything to be able to hook it up to the monitor. The Rodecaster seems to work really well with it. The only thing with OBS that I can't figure out to do is, like, for example, when I play the intro, I can't monitor the audio. I also can't figure out how to enable desktop audio. It just says if you go into settings, let's try this. If I go here, I'm going to turn on display. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, that's because I'm an idiot again. Anyway, what was I going to do? Oh, yeah. If you go, I'll just talk through it. If you go into audio and you look at the devices, for desktop audio 1 and 2, both say disabled. I can't choose Rodecaster. So, if I wanted to, let's say, play back a YouTube video or play any audio from my desktop, it won't allow it to happen. So I don't know if that's a limitation with Macs or what, but haven't figured that out. Also, when I play my intro music or my subscribe, I can't hear that audio even if I change the audio monitoring settings within OBS. So not a huge deal. And again, hopefully I only have to deal with this for 1 week. And we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. And hopefully I'll have some updates too as far as what I've learned on the music production side. There's a program that I've heard of. It's called LMMS, which I believe is like a free option alternative for like something like Ableton or something along those lines. So I may check that out too to see what kind of options that can give me. Because again, I don't need some full featured suite. I just need something that can allow me to create simple audio tracks that that I can put in my videos. So anyway, that's where we're at. Thank you so much for watching, and appreciate you being here. And Richard, thanks for the comment. And we will see you in the next episode.